So what's the big problem with wealth creation? How do people like us, who didn't inherit a boatload of money, who are investing and building wealth from our own blood, sweat and tears, how do we invest in a way that gives us remarkable results and become financially free before retirement age? I don't know about you, but I am sick of hearing from wealth gurus and experts who don't walk their own talk and prescribe strategies that are a one-size-fits-all approach. For self-made people like you and me, I'm here to tell you that you don't need to be superhuman or already wealthy to reach financial freedom earlier than 65. All right, guys, welcome back. I am super excited today that I have a new friend of mine, Matt Raad, with me. Matt, thank you very much for making time.
Awesome to be here, Salena. Thanks so much for having me on.
So look, Matt and I crossed paths. I've actually been hearing Matt's name around the traps for many years now, which gives you a sense of how long he's been around. But as soon as I kind of actually put my head into it and looked at what it is that you do, Matt, I immediately recognized the synergy. So today for me is really an exploration, both for me and for everyone listening, on a left of field approach to alternative investing. So I think where I would love to start, though, is it's always a fun place to start, is to just really give people context for who you are and how you've come to be where you are. So you're known for being the website flipper guy, amongst other things, but you've actually had a very colorful past. So I know it's an incredibly broad question, but I think if you could just give maybe a quick overview of who you are and who you serve right now.
As you said, Salena, Liz and I, so my wife and I, are well known here in Australia for the experts in buying and selling online businesses. So that's our bread and butter. Been doing that since, 15 years now. But where that came from is the way we generated wealth in our life is not through the traditional real estate way or shares. It was through buying and selling businesses. So bricks and mortar, good old fashioned bricks and mortar businesses. And we started out in our first business was a manufacturing business in the western suburbs of Sydney. And then we got very successful at that. It was nearly going bankrupt. There's a whole story behind it. So, and we got totally the wrong advice. Sorry to say this, Salena, but often an accountant. And I've since found in my journey, this is an important part of our story. One of the big things that influenced us a lot was how do you value a business and how do you do due diligence on it? And I found most accountants just don't understand the intricacies of that because except for the practical ones like yourself who are out there, but there's a lot of accountants that do unfortunately not quite get that bit right. So we went on this journey of buying and selling bricks and mortar businesses and also learning off mentors. How do you value businesses and how do you do proper due diligence on them in the multi-million-dollar level up to 20 mil? So we were working with private equity firms, very high net worths, people that you'd read in, remember the old magazine BRW and the Fin Review. So that was a real buzz for me. And basically that's been our journey is just learning how you buy and sell businesses. We got really good at it. We bought multiple businesses and then we did it in M&A. And then when we had our kids, we realized, we can just do all this online. And that's when we shifted around the GFC. 2008 was when we really got going with buying and selling online businesses. So that's our journey in a nutshell. But been a bit colourful along the way too. Yeah, there's been some adventures.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I totally understand your comment about accountants. And, I recently did a podcast which was trying to unpack a little bit around how not all white-collar financial experts know everything. And unfortunately, in the accounting world, I think people think that the accountant is the one-stop shop for advice across the board. So, yeah.
And it's cool. Absolutely. You know what I've found? The practical accountants over the years, what they realize is they can kind of semi-value a business okay, but they need to call in people like myself to help their client practically sell the thing. There's two parts to selling a business. One is the valuation and the due diligence side, but then actually selling it. I had a really good network of accountants in Sydney who would call me in and say, Matt, I've got a client. This is a really tricky business. I reckon it's worth 5 mil. What do you reckon? And can you sell it? And I come in and we sit down and we sit with the client. We go through all the pros and cons. And what clients need is practical, honest advice about what's their asset really worth. And that's what I loved. I loved doing that. And I love working with those sorts of accountants because they'd bring me the best deals. And I got the best referrals because I would get them really good results. I specialized in selling wholesale import businesses and manufacturing businesses because that's what Liz and I always bought for ourselves. So that was our specialty. With anything with EBITs of $1 million or more, that was our specialty.
Fabulous. Look, I'm really curious to sort of maybe ask you some questions that will help people who are on their journey. In your own life, was there a point in time where you sort of thought, now's the time for me to start thinking about investing, or were you a natural born investor?
Okay, wrong person to ask that because I'm the latter. I was in that mode since the day I was born. So that was really, really easy for me. So ever since I was a little kid, I've always saved money. Money's been a massive thing for me because I grew up very poor in the southwestern suburbs of Sydney. My mum was a single mum until she remarried, luckily. My dad is my stepdad, but we moved out to a farm. So then from the age of, I think, around 6 or 7, I just lived on farms. And even then, money was very, very tight, particularly in my mum's side of the family where, very working class. My granddad was a fitter and turner in Bankstown, lovely area back in those days. And it really had a big impact on me. There was a lot of fear around not having money because, mum would work and then it would run out before the rent was due type thing. And so I think as a kid, I was one of those kids that was just running. Like when it comes to money, I vowed I was not going to grow up poor like my family and I was going to be rich. Yep. And so saving was natural. I always had heaps of savings, whatever I could scrimp and save. And that drove me very much so. When I turned 18, I left home and moved into the city, and all I was interested in was getting money and in figuring out how to become wealthy. And that meant I had to hang around high net worth. So I didn't know any millionaires out in the country at all. There was not on the surface. So when I went to the city, I made a point of learning off people that I felt were quite wealthy. And my question was, how'd you make your money? And I was very, very curious and still am to this day. I'm in my 50s now. Still, that's what fascinates me. That's why I love doing these podcasts, meeting people like yourself. And, you've got an amazing network and clients who are all wealthy and everything. It just fascinates me to this day. How have they gotten wealthy? And that's the journey I went on. So in terms of saving, that idea you're meant to save 10% of your income. I think Liz and I from day one, we lived on the smell of an oily rag. We'd save 80%. Every cent we had was reinvested back into business. So it wasn't, I guess it's not like saving, as you know, Salena, businesses suck up money, right? And it's not an easy thing, bricks and mortar businesses, but we would literally put every last cent we'd have back into these businesses so they become a cash cow machine. But it was very tricky.
There's so much in what you're saying. There's so much in what there's so much gold in what you're saying, Matt. I'd love to pull this apart a little bit if you don't mind.
Yep.
I mean, one of the things I've observed is it's very common for people to have a relationship with money which stems from their upbringing, right?
Yep.
And so you kind of had that thirst and hunger for building wealth. You have probably demonstrated more delayed gratification than most people. And I probably share that attribute too. How does money show up for you now, though? You're in a position where you don't have to work. You are financially independent.
Not at all.
Do you feel you've reconciled and tweaked that view of what money means? And, how does it show up for you now? Do you feel you've got that
really good question?
Balance?
I'll do the politician's answer, right? I'll make it colourful. No, this is the intro. This brings up a thought. Yeah, because I'm just sitting there thinking, literally this morning, we're talking about, so we have now cash flow businesses. They're online. They're the total opposite of our bricks and mortar businesses. They're 80% margins. Instead of sucking up cash, they throw off so much cash. There's no expenses on these businesses. And so you're right. Money just shows up but we still to this day reinvest it back into websites. But now, interestingly for us, this is where there is a difference. All of a sudden, possibly at the peak of the market, I don't know, but we're interested in real estate again. Would you believe it? For many years, since 2000, we've always invested in shares because that's like buying and selling companies. That's another way we do it. We do angel investing as well. But I think what the tipping point or an interesting challenge for us was in our journey of people know us for buying these amazing online businesses where literally you buy them on a 3 times multiple, but we're buying them even on a 1 times multiple. So that means if we spend 100 grand on a business, we're doubling our money within 12 to 24 months. Now that doesn't happen all the time, but what happened was when we started to get that working, there's a bit of knowledge you need to learn. There was this really weird subconscious belief system that started to come up for both Liz and I from our childhood, where we were taught you got to work your butt out to make money. And particularly in bricks and mortar businesses, you do. But online businesses, when we first got on, within 12 months, it went exponential. Now, our first website that we bought, we spent, I think it was $20,000 US, and it was making $3,000 US a month. So that's over $30,000 a year. And that's net profit. That's not turnover. That's real. Not only that, Salena, within the first month of owning it, we renovated it and doubled it pretty much overnight. Literally took less than 3 hours, and we're making $6,000 a month. And then we kept doing that with multiple websites. We're going, why would we stick at one? Let's do what we've always done, have a portfolio of businesses. But my point is, in terms of mindset, we had to work with some mentors because these subconscious blockages, all of a sudden we weren't having the work to make a significant income. Like I'm talking significant 6-figure income, not just your average 6-figure income, for not really doing that much. And they were assets too that were sitting there that we could also sell as well. So for us, that was a big shock to the system to suddenly go from struggle street, where literally we're on the edge of bankruptcy the whole time when we're in bricks and mortar businesses, and then we make our money when we do a big sellout or something like that, to suddenly having these amazing cash flow businesses where you might spend, I don't know, a couple of hours a week working on them. That's it. And you own 10 of those. Well, actually, we owned a lot more than 10, but you own 10 of those. And it's a weird thing to suddenly have large sums of money turn up in your bank account. And you know, the other weird thing, these websites are based in America. So it happens overnight while you're asleep, not even working, not even physically working on the things. You literally wake up in the morning and there's an email from Google or from ClickBank or whatever saying, oh, you've got money in your bank account. Go and check it. And
fabulous.
Significant sums for doing nothing. So suddenly we realized, wow, this is all the stuff that, you know, all the mindset courses talk about. We did Tony Robbins stuff, learning about subconscious blockages and things. And we realized we had some pretty major ones there.
Yeah, no, love it. And, you know, ultimately, I think, you know, the journey of every investor is not just about the making of the money. It's about the psychology and the relationship that you have with money. And so I think everyone thinks it's all about the, what do you do? What are the tactics? What's the strategies? How does it work? But truly, as you get further along on your wealth building journey, the way you think and how you relate to money probably is what dominates. And so, you know, I think you and I have shared off camera just lots of similar experience around that sort of thing.
For your clients, you would see this too. We've all got that ceiling as well. Now, that's very challenging when you come from a poor background, but in some ways it's actually easier because you smash through it and you don't worry about it. But still, for me, I had to keep checking in with that glass ceiling. What am I allowed to earn? I can remember, Salena, when I was a broker, the first big multi-million business that I sold, I had to calmly say to this ultra high net worth individual, okay, to make this deal work, you need to give me 10% check and I'm going to put it in our trust account. And he just came in, this is back in the days when you had checks, and he just said, no worries, 400,000 here. And it was just done. And I remember looking at the check going, man, that guy just wrote that from his savings. And I know exactly how much money he had in the bank because people got to tell you that sort of stuff. And it just was mind blowing to realize, and he'd done it from exiting a big wholesale import business. And he literally had, back then, it was a lot, like around 10 million just in cash in a bank account. And he said, Matt, I need to find a really good business that generates lots of money. And then I'm bored. He was in the same, he's bored. He's not working anymore and he's got all this money. And I just remember really stuck in my mind, this is normal. And then I started to see lots of people. So that mindset around what's your glass ceilings and breaking through it and realizing, oh, this is normal. This is how business works. To be able to write a check for 400,000, that should be fine. And since then, I met much wealthier people than that too, that would tell me the same thing, write me checks for millions of dollars to put down as deposits on these businesses that we were selling. It's pretty mind-blowing though at the time to realize that's how money works at a different level. And that's what these were full-time investors, these people. They're making their money work.
That's very interesting. I think the sort of the question that I want to ask you, which I don't ask too many people because they're not in a position to answer this, but one of the great myths around wealth building is that as you move along on your journey and you kind of start kicking some goals, that all your troubles disappear. And, I think the question that I'd love to ask you, and, I love that you're being so candid, is that, what is it that keeps you up at night now? Like, what is it that troubles you around money and wealth now? Or what is it that troubles you in relation to that? Is it worry for your children? Is it?
Yeah, but with the kids, yeah, of course. That's a big one. I was just about to say it's probably kids, and that's what you and I have talked about off camera. It's family, raising young kids to be successful and happy, though. It's not about finance. See, for me, it was always easy. I was very one way because it was just about money. Interestingly, for Liz, it's not about money. She grew up in the country, but her parents were okay. They weren't rich or anything like that. So her thing was being able to, she needed to meet someone like me she's very driven, very, very driven, but money doesn't, it's not the money side. It's more, I guess, security for the future. And for both of us, it's freedom. So for me, I needed financial freedom. For Liz, she wants freedom to do what she wants and live in the country, and freedom to raise a family how she wants as well. And that's why it's so important for us to work from home. So what keeps us up at night, I guess, is the problems don't go. They just operate at a different level. And it's funny, one of the things, honestly, that popped in my head, Salena, then to this day, I still need to work with my mindset around wealth and success, and I need to be comfortable with it. It's the subconscious blockages that they still keep coming up. So I've done hypnosis and heaps of courses, and I teach it so that I'm really good at, for myself, overcoming it, but also helping others. So I think that the issues are always there and you've got to work at them. And it's funny, we've got some very high net worth friends and we talk, and they're self-made. They come from nothing, similar background to Liz and I. And when we get together and, you might have a few drinks or whatever, and you sit, or over coffee or whatever, you talk, you have the same discussions. It's like, what are you doing to keep moving forward, and how have you gotten through that ceiling? And also, how do you stay humble? We live in Queensland, where it's not about driving around in Ferraris and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. We've got friends that do that. That's an interesting one for me as well. So wealth, I think the main thing that I've observed amongst my friends, though, it's funny in this day and age, we're all talking about family, raising our kids, because our kids now are growing up privileged, not like how we all grew up. And it's a different set of problems for those kids. And, first world problem, admittedly, but, there's a lot to deal with there. You want your kids to go out. And so the discussions are, how much do we give our kids a leg up? Or are we like Warren Buffett, where we just go, nah, you're not getting anything and you got to sort it out yourself. So that's an interesting one as well.
Well, I've got lots of thoughts on that, and we've spent a lot of time talking about that within my community. It's definitely a fascinating area, and there's never a right or wrong, but really the ultimate, I guess, pursuit is, having your children grow up capable, functioning human beings, and how do you give them all the support they need, but without disabling them? It's very interesting.
And let them grow up confident and happy. I think that's a really important outcome for us.
So look, Matt, I know the sorts of questions that people probably typically ask you on these podcasts are all about the strategy and how the strategy works. Yep. With your permission, I'd love to maybe kind of start that exploration, but maybe get you back another time to delve a bit deeper. Yep. I think for me, you're such a fascinating cocktail of skills. I think one of the things that would be a great...
I like that description. That sounds unreal.
Well, I think one of the things that a lot of people who listening to this are probably going is they're probably salivating about, show me the deals, tell me how this thing works. Yeah. But perhaps before we get to that, what would be really interesting, I think, is you have mentored and coached hundreds of people in this space. Yeah. And one of the things that I think, with the work that I do is you sort of get really, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, very clear about the sort of attributes that contribute to success. Yes. If you're going to go down this path of being an investor. So from my point of view, whether you're investing in real estate or websites, or you're going into pooled real estate opportunities, whatever it is, there's a certain set of attributes that I think are really important. In your mind, who do you see amongst your tribe that really get this? What are the attributes? What are the qualities? And if people were thinking about, what do I need to cultivate? What would you say?
That's an awesome question. So how do I get it out before I forget what just popped into my head there? Type A achievers, we tend to attract those, like high achievers. So, and probably very similar to any of your listeners, the mere fact that they're listening to a podcast like this, that sort of a person is definitely the more successful on our courses. And that tends to be most people these days who listen to these sorts of podcasts. So if you're a high achiever, you're already driven. So because what it is, it's mindset. We can teach total beginners how to buy and sell websites and the technical side. We're really good at it. We love doing it. It's actually the success comes down to exactly what you said, Salena. It is the mindset. And if you're driven and you're prepared to turn up and do the work, because it's not a walk in the park, just like with real estate. And it's about now the one other thing that I've learned is people see us as, and in the old days, we used to teach it. It's a quick way to generate cash flow, but it's not. What we've learned is it's not a get rich quick thing. This takes time because there is knowledge. There's a knowledge gap. So we draw the exponential graph. We call it Matt's graph because I love it. What happens is you've got to get along the boring bit along the bottom, which is the reps, the learning bit. And that's the challenging bit where it goes up and down. You know, you're going to make mistakes like in anything in investing, but particularly with online businesses. So it's about a mindset of sticking at it until it starts to get exponential. I think that's some of the biggest attributes you can have. And also, interestingly, we find that people that have already invested in real estate tend to be our most successful clients. They kind of get it. See, buying and selling businesses, whether it's online or bricks and mortar, is a very unique thing. Not many people do that. It's quite rare that people do that a lot. So typically we don't have many people that come on that have already done that. But yeah, what we've observed over the years, anyone that's bought and sold real estate kind of get it. Like they know, you got to do due diligence. You've got to be smart with your money. You've got to buy the right kind of property and you've got to get a rent return. It's almost kind of like entrepreneurial training. If you're listening to this and you've already been on that journey, like maybe with Salena or anyone buying and selling real estate or investing in real estate, honestly, that's probably the best core background training you're ever going to get before you come aboard to be buying and selling websites. I think that's probably one of the big success factors. We do attract a lot of real estate investors into our course because they're looking for alternative investments. They max out with the banks and they need the cash flow. That's basically why they come across. We have people from all walks of life, whether you're working a full-time job or whatever, but I think there is something to be said for already being an existing investor. You've got the right mindset because then you're going to stick at it. You can see that it's going to work. And I guess it feeds back to this idea. There's some stuff you got to do to be successful at this and you need that drive to keep at it. So if you're already a successful investor, you can see that this can you're going to go through the learning phase to make this work for you. Does that make sense? Hopefully.
Absolutely. Great answer. No, it's great. I think the sort of the extension question from this is that certainly in my life, I understand what active income means and selling my time for money. And the attraction to investing is really leveraging time, folding time and getting into buying assets that deliver a passive income stream. But I also believe the average Joe has a very confused definition of what passive income means. I have my own views, but I'd love you to, from your perspective, particularly when we're talking about an asset class like websites, what does passive income mean to you? Because passive income to me does not mean sitting with your feet up on the couch and doing nothing.
No, and these days, I've got to admit with websites, it's not quite as passive as what it used to be 15 years ago. But passive income to me means we call it semi-passive now. So you do a little bit of work on it, but it's not connected to swapping time for money. So 1 unit of effort on a website can yield, normally someone goes to work and we'd say, you'll swap time for money. You work 9 to 5, or these days it's 5 to 9, I think, for most people. And, for every hour you're paid X amount. So 1 unit of effort, it's just a linear graph. You know what you're going to get at the end of the day. You get 1 unit of reward. With websites, you do 1 unit of effort, you can get 10x result on that. So you post a really good piece of content and it gets a whole heap of people visiting the website. But what you've got to realize is it's this idea, done once, done forever. That one piece of content could generate you a couple of grand a month for the next 10 years. So it's 1 unit of it. So, okay, it took you a big unit of effort. Semi-passive income to us means the opposite of working 9 to 5. You just do 1 or 2 hours a week or more or less, whatever. But it means also that you can stop working on it and go away for 2 weeks or come back if life gets busy. Here's a cute thing, Salena. When we have PAYGs come onto our courses, right? So people that earn, for US people, salary earners, that's the word I'm looking for. That's what PAYG means here in Australia. It's really cute. They think, oh, I've got to turn up every day and do something on this website. And I'm like, no, you don't do that. Liz calls it the binge theory. You go hard at it and then you can leave it and you go to the next website. And you can leave it for a month. You can leave it for 6 months. We've got websites that we haven't touched for over a year. Now, I don't recommend that. That's pretty lazy. But the point is they're semi-passive in that we can come and work at them and then we can walk away. You don't even have to look at them. Yep. It's a little bit like property in that sense, in that, when you own a property, I guess, most
exactly like property. It's exactly like real estate. It's exactly like.
So you might do a reno once every however many years. Well, we do the same. So when we buy a website, we do an initial renovation and then it's kind of ongoing. Ideally, you kind of drip feed in the kind of work that you do on the asset. So that's what semi-passive means to us. It's just disconnected from swapping time for money, and you can work on it in blocks and park it and come back to it as necessary.
Love it. I'm actually going to round out this interview with one last question, and then I'd love to hit you up for let's go deep on the actual strategy itself. You're creating quite a pool of wealth for you and your family right now. I'd love to kind of understand from a goals perspective, what does that look like for you and Liz right now? Like, what's the objective? I mean, obviously there's an element we've already mentioned of wanting to create a legacy play here for the kids. And
that's a huge one, I've got to say. Yep.
Yeah. What's the aspiration? I mean, you and Liz could have put your feet up years ago.
Yeah.
What's the point?
I used to look at, Richard Branson. We used to speak on stages, and it's obvious why we did it. We had a lot of fun, and it was a personal development thing for me to get over being shy and all that sort of stuff. But also we made money out of being, you get paid to speak on stages. But on some of those stages, you see Richard Branson. You're thinking, why is this dude? At the time, he was one of the richest men on the planet. He was always in the media, billionaire. And I found out that, he's paid like a couple of $100,000 to come and do a guest presentation on these stages. And I used to look at him and go, why is he even bothering? Like, it's like sense when you're a billionaire. But I think you can't retire. When you're successful and you're highly driven, which anyone in this community is, like anyone listening to this podcast, don't care, you're a closet high achiever, whether you think it or not. All of us are. Let's not deny it. When you're a high achiever, I don't think you can retire, and I certainly can't. So Liz can step back a bit more these days. She's fine with the idea of retiring. But even her, I've noticed she's back into it now with me full on. Just, we're having a ball. I think it's personal satisfaction, and it is. We're very goal-oriented. We teach it to our kids. You got to set a vision. So we were very heavily influenced, particularly myself. But then when I met Liz, she was on with it as well. A person that's impacted us a lot in our lives, and maybe this will go to helping answer your question, Salena, is Arnold Schwarzenegger. So he came to America. So my family are all immigrants as well. And he came to America with nothing, couldn't even speak the language, and had an impossible name. And he's always made money in really weird ways. Very robot, not, almost like a machine. Now, Liz and I aren't like a machine or anything, but Arnold's biggest lesson that he gives, and he's to this day, in his latest book, he talks about it, you got to have a vision. Well, guess what we've learned? You got to have a vision. It drives you every day. You wake up. So constantly, we teach this to our clients. Liz and I, luckily, because we're both on the same path, we're sharing our vision with each other definitely every Monday morning, but we're making sure, checking in with each other, what's our vision for the next 10 years, next 20 years? And it sounds kind of robotic to plan your life out so much, but I'm here to tell you it works. We've hit every single goal we have set, or 95% of the goals we set back 20 or 30 years ago. We've hit every single one, including financial ones. And that is a buzz. And it's a really smart question of yours now that I'm in my mid 50s. I'm not allowed to say Liz's age because she's way younger than me, of course. But when you get to that point in your life where you've hit every single goal, including financials, it's like, what is next? Well, you need to set a new vision for the future. And for us, that involves still being in business, teaching people what we know. That is an inner drive for both Liz and myself. We love doing that. And then travel and all the usual things that you want to do, that people want to do in their semi-retirement and stuff. But it is about staying driven, like Arnie says, staying hungry, because otherwise, as a high achiever, especially as a male, I know this sounds very stereotypical, but seriously, I've hung around a lot of high net worths who are 10 to 20 years older than me. That's mainly my network. And for men, if you're listening to this, you can run into serious health problems and mental health problems if you just suddenly retire and you're used to being a high achiever. That's who I used to serve. That's who I used to help. Their wives would come to me and say, Matt, I'm sick of having my hubby around at home. He's moping around, unhappy, depressed. Get him another business. There's only, and they'd say to me, there's only so much golf you can play. So I think that's what drives me is I need to stay active. And what we do here, say with eBusiness Institute, is incredibly fulfilling mindset-wise, and buying and selling, like being involved in online businesses. I jokingly say to all our clients, and all our clients agree with this, far out, if you get involved in online businesses, you will never get dementia because it keeps your brain, or Alzheimer's, you know how that's really prevalent now. Seriously, it is the ultimate problem-solving sphere to be in. It's like when you're renovating websites and stuff, there's lots of fun things, levers that you can pull, and it's all about strategy. So it is incredibly satisfying. So that's what I want to do into my retirement. And we're lucky in that we can do this working from home in our Jimmy Jams, literally on a laptop. It can be anywhere. We can do it while we're traveling. So we can stay mentally fulfilled, into our 80s or whatever, doing this sort of stuff. And we've got a lot of older clients that do that. And all my older mentor friends, they're all the same. None of them want to retire. Whilst they're semi-retired, they typically start becoming full-time investors into other businesses and things like that, so that you're constantly involved. And that's why you do angel investing, which is what else we do as well, because you're constantly involved and you're helping someone else out too. And you get to make money at the same time. Perfect. Doesn't get any better than that.
I love it. I know. Thank you for that answer. If I reflect on the sorts of conversations that go on in my network of high net worth individuals and people who I regard as mentors, in various forms, it's retirement is a dirty word.
Yeah.
The journey that a lot of people who have hit majority of their financial goals at this point in their life, or, for sometimes it's much earlier. Sometimes people can be in their 30s and hit, the goal.
Yeah.
And then the journey and the pivot is to really what you're describing is impact. You have what you need. What is the impact you want to have? And so that's very much in alignment with my personal philosophy, which is money is part of the equation for success. But success, if it's about feeling good, has to transition to impact. So I think what you've said is fantastic.
And that's what Arnie says. That's one of his 7 rules. Is number 1 is have a vision. I think number 7 is you've got to give back. At some point, once you've made it, you got to give back. And that's what we do, a lot of mentoring.
That's great.
It's very satisfying, impacting other people, sharing what we've done. So
yeah. And I have to agree with you, just on a separate note, Arnie is phenomenal. And for those who have not seen his Netflix doco, go and watch it. Go and watch it. If you can't be bothered reading the book, it's a great.
Just watch those 3. Yeah, it's fine. It tells the story. That's and it's interesting, isn't it? He's a lot more, like the questions you're asking me now. In the past, you never read the introspective stuff. Now he's later in his life, he's being a lot more introspective and kind of asking himself the questions that you basically just asked me. And he's gone and written a book about it. So well done. That's what we get to this age and this level of success. You're very young like Liz, of course. So, but when you get to my age, Salena, you do start to look at these sorts of things. And it's nice to be able to share them with people and give insights to anyone listening to this. Stay driven. I like what Arnie says. Have a vision and stay driven.
Yeah.
Stay hungry, he says.
I think the truth around life as I'm as I feel like I'm discovering at the moment, it's not the pursuit of knowledge. It's about asking the right questions, deepening the wisdom and really being at home with all the things that might have caused you angst in the past, all those things, all that good stuff. No, look, it's been fabulous having you on today, Matt. We absolutely will have you back. I think as an asset class, the website space is one that certainly isn't in mainstream media at all. In my community, as agnostic agnostic as possible about what the asset class is and more have a focus on what is the outcome that a particular asset class gives us and does it, align with the plan that we have. And I can see how this would be a really great fit. So I think it'd be really good to, maybe.
And for your listeners, Salena, I'll just throw in one extra thing too. We present it as it's a really traditional real estate investors. Online businesses are a really, really good way to diversify your portfolio. And so we see it as insurance for the future because they do have the potential to be incredibly high cash flow machines. It doesn't always work that way, but it definitely works as a way of diversifying your portfolio away from big, heavy assets like real estate. Online businesses are very light and easy to move around, to renovate, to sell. They're just insurance for the future. And it's a super smart thing to do. Of course, I'm going to say this, but it is a super smart thing to learn just for the digital skills alone. So there's multiple impacts of understanding this asset class. So you're definitely right, Salena. Very smart thing for your community to consider as an alternative investment.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate your time today. It's been absolutely awesome.
That was awesome, Salena. Thanks so much for having me on.
If you're feeling frustrated that despite doing everything right in the property investing playbook and you're no closer to financial freedom, then head on over to incosiwealth.com to learn more about how you can use alternative investments to catapult your investing income and blend strategies to shave decades off your timeline to financial freedom. See you on the next episode.